Hello there, good evening and welcome to Lincoln City's pre-match show Matchday Live on a week which has quite simply shaken football, hasn't it? Coming up on tonight's show, we'll be discussing that European Super League and how it may well affect the club and all of the clubs in the EFL as well. We'll also be looking back on that big win against Bristol Rovers on Saturday. And of course, ahead to tonight's big game at the Pirelli Stadium, Burton Albion versus Lincoln City. Gary Hutchinson joins me as ever. Gary, lovely to see you. We've had a couple of days to digest the news now, haven't it? What's your overriding thoughts from it?
Utter disgust, Sam, to be honest. The more I've read, the more I dislike the whole thing, the way it's been handled, the plans, the way they've been implemented, the way it's been announced is just disgusting in every single way. For these clubs to make such a big decision on behalf of players, managers, supporters, and not have any form of consultation is disgusting. And I'll keep saying that word because it's the only one I can think of that will be allowed to be broadcast. Just utter revulsion. And well, it's not the death of football. I don't believe that, but it's certainly just baffles me.
Yeah, this is where we're at today then. The Premier League confirming that they've had a meeting with 14 teams, so not the 6 involved in the European Super League. Jordan Henderson has also reportedly called for a meeting with Premier League captains as well. I'm sure news of that will come to light over the next day or so as well. And Lincoln City putting out a statement yesterday as well. This is part of the statement, not the statement in full, but it says our reaction to the announcement of the formation of a European Super League is one of deep sadness and dismay for it to take place at a time when so many clubs in grassroots football are battling with the consequences of COVID-19 is reprehensible. Similar to our stance on Project Big Picture, we are vehemently against this concentration of power and ever-increasing wealth in the hands of just a few clubs who, at a point in time, believe they have the right to entrench that power and wealth forever. It will destroy the principles upon which the game has been played in England for more than a century and will have severe consequences on the football pyramid and beyond. We must not be fooled by empty promises of this wealth trickling down the pyramid. The falsehood of those promises was laid bare upon proper analysis of the figures contained in Project Big Picture. Gary, when you see a statement like that coming from the club that you support, what's the reaction?
Immediate pride, because the club, bear in mind, may be in a difficult position. We're talking here about one of the teams who was loaned as a key player for the season. When I say delicate, the club have still got to put their feelings across, but I don't think it was easy. I'm always proud of my football club at the moment. We have got great owners and a great board who fundamentally understand what football is about. They put the fans first. They put the football club's future first. So I certainly wasn't surprised to see a statement, but I was very, very proud at the incredibly strong wording that I read.
Well, unsurprisingly, Michael Appleton was asked in his pre-match press conference yesterday at the LNER Stadium what he made of those proposals. This is what he had to say.
Clearly, the same as everybody else, that it can only mean bad things for the game. So, but I wouldn't do it justice by trying to give you an answer in 20 seconds or 20 minutes and need an hour of your time to tell you what I really thought of it.
Just briefly then, I wonder what football would look like without competition, without that threat of sort of promotion and relegation, what football would look like without having to earn the right to be there.
Well, it wouldn't be football, would it? Be a different sport. So they'd have to call it some kind of, I know obviously in America they call football soccer. They'd have to come up with some kind of other word to use because it certainly wouldn't be football.
Yeah, we'll hear plenty more from Michael Appleton throughout the course of tonight's show as well. Pleased to say as well that Mark Hone joins us, BBC Radio Lincolnshire summarising, of course, former Imp as well. Mark joining us on Saturday's Matchday Live and is with us again this evening. Mark, I'll ask for your reaction to it as well. Has it changed in the last 24 hours from what you've seen, both whether it's on Sky's Monday Night Football or just the news in general? What are your opinions?
I'll try not to swear. I know Gary had trouble with the BBC Radio Lincolnshire today. I absolutely flabbergasted that this has come about. I think it's been on the cards for a while, but the timing of it, with everybody that's been suffering with the coronavirus, the pandemic, the football clubs, personally, football, the fans, everybody's been struggling. And for 6 clubs within the pyramid, if you like, of what we stand for as football fans, as players, ex-players, managers, directors, some of the directors I don't think have been involved in this either. So I'm absolutely disgusted, and I will use that word again, and Gary's going to use it. It's absolutely disgusting, the arrogance, the greed, everything you can think of about what football doesn't or shouldn't stand for is being apparent here in what these 6 Premiership clubs are trying to do. I'm a Liverpool supporter, and I'm disgusted with my club. The history, everything about why I supported them as a 6-year-old boy, watching them on TV and grown up with all the ex-players, the managers, and I thought the owners of Liverpool this time around understood it. They got Klopp in, and Klopp did a fantastic job, doing what he's done to turn this football club around. And now the owners have just literally pulled the rug from underneath him. And I really felt for him yesterday. I'm sure he wanted to say more and couldn't. So, the fans, I mean, the players might not even be able to play for the country. If UEFA do what they're saying they're going to do, they're going to pull them from the tournaments, pull them from playing for their countries. I don't think there's going to be a fans revolt on this. I think there'll be players as well, because I'm seeing players already saying, I want to play for my country. If I have to move clubs, I will. And so some of these top players, dare I say, don't need the money. So now it's going to become down to their integrity as to what they want to do. Do they want to go and play in this Super League and earn millions and millions, which they will do, or do they want to actually go and play for the country and represent their country in tournaments? So I'm with Michael Appleton, with everybody. Everybody that's said anything negative about this, I'm totally for it. I'm gobsmacked. I'm absolutely gobsmacked. You think of when Lincoln played Liverpool earlier in the season. You think of all the smaller teams that crave to play one of these big 6, and these big 6 now are decided, because they want more money, because I think the 2 Spanish clubs, they've got a lot to answer for as well. I think they players' wages for them must be extortionate. And I think the only reason they want to jump ship and do this Super League is because they can't financially afford to get the top players in. I think the pandemic's hit them, and I think they're struggling for money. And I think that's why they want to move away from their leagues that they're in and playing this Super League, just simply because of money. That's all it's about. And the owners of these clubs see a shortfall in what they're trying to gain out of this football club in terms of money. It's just pure greed, and I hate it. And I hope everybody stands up and takes action on this. They need to. Everybody needs to.
Gary, the Real Madrid president, speaking last night on television, said that he wouldn't rule out himself the idea of shortening matches to suit the needs of the younger generation. A, how do you feel about that? And B, do you expect changes to football over the next few years? Can we expect some sort of reform?
You can expect some sort of changes if the franchise league comes in, because they'll be a rule unto themselves. They'll no longer be governed by FIFA. They'll more than likely play in thirds so that they can get more advert breaks in and get more money in. I think that those comments are utterly clueless. I think they come from a man who has no idea at all about football. We don't need to change football to adapt to young people. I was a young person once. I watched 45 minutes of football, see young people engaging with football across the county, across the country, and across the world. Football is a universal language that everybody speaks, and you don't need to reform that in order to capture more people. He's talking about reform to capture more advertising revenue, more spaces for sponsors to put their logos. It's just utterly baffling. I can't get my head around it. I can understand the principle of them wanting a European Super League. I am against it, but I can understand the principle. But when you start talking about shortening matches to engage younger people, there's no basis, there's no evidence for the fact that young people are not engaging with football because it's too long and we should play 30 minutes. There's been no study conducted. I go to Lincoln City, I see children of 3, 4 and 5 engaged in the football. The man is delusional. He's utterly delusional.
Mark, is there a slight problem, a slight worry that all the the focus, if you like, is on quality, when in actual fact, you know, Lincoln City fans, if we go back to even 16-17, a brilliant season, although it wasn't necessarily brilliant for the quality of football every single week, was it? You know, you look at the games, just some of the matches from that season, it wasn't all about the quality on the pitch. It was about being together, whether it was an away day, whether it was a home match at the LNER Stadium. It was about the atmosphere and everything that comes with that. It is not just simply about the absolute best players on the biggest amount of money.
No, it's not. It's not, Sammy. And I go back to one of the issues that they're talking about is that there's no relegation. So what kind of a competition is that? What kind of sport is that? Where, you know, if you're a Lincoln City supporter and you know, we're playing Hull on Saturday, if you were going to the game, you would have the expectation that you're going to win the game. You're going to have the fear that you're going to lose the game and what that might mean. This Super League, it doesn't matter if you win or lose because you're being shoe-fitted into it, so it doesn't matter. If you lose, who cares? So the football's about competition. It is about winning and losing, and it's about the emotion of that and the fans feeling that and the players picking up on the fans feeling that. So it's got the whole package. And like Gary says, you don't need to change football. Football's got everything it needs in it already. You know, that's why it's lasted as long as it has. I just don't understand why they want to shorten football matches. Only because it's money, like Gary says, to get revenue. It's be watching like American football, which is so frustrating because they play, you know, throw the ball, all of a sudden it's an advert break. They play another, they do like the fourth down, advert break. That's what it's going to be like. And it's just, for football fans all over, this can't happen. It really can't happen. So, like I say, how you can play football and not have a competitive element to it, I don't understand. I don't get it. What kind of trophy are they going to play for?
Gary, just find out.
Rename a trophy. What you finished bottom? Say Spurs finished bottom. Peter Levy's not going to care, is he? What does he care?
I think Peter Levy is presenting the news.
So there's not West Ham that are going to finish. West Ham, if they win the Premiership, if these six leave and West Ham win the Premiership, where do they go?
We're approaching 6 o'clock. Gary, just before we do, final question on this, because we do have a game to talk about this evening as well. Has the reaction from both football supporters far and wide and particular players and managers as well, has that given you hope that this won't come to fruition?
It's not giving me hope it hasn't come to fruition, that it won't come to fruition. It's given me hope that there will be life beyond it if it does. I can see some of the bigger clubs, the Manchester Uniteds and Liverpool's, potentially being franchised out, playing home games out of Abu Dhabi 3 months a season or something like that. I think fundamentally fans will come together, and whether it's Phoenix clubs or whether it's just universal sport, I don't think fans will stop it. I think players are the only people that will stop it. Nobody will watch Barcelona without the top players. If the players refuse to play in it, it's got no legs. You can't cook a nice meal without good ingredients. But it's heartening to see the football community coming together, definitely.
Right then, it's 6 o'clock, which means we can get tonight's team news for Lincoln City, who are facing Burton Albion at the Pirelli Stadium. So Michael Appleton makes one change to the starting 11 that beat Bristol Rovers on Saturday. The big news, perhaps the biggest news of the evening, is that George Grant is back. He's on the bench this evening. Just to confirm, George Grant on the bench. Great news for Michael Appleton. Great news for Lincoln City fans as well. The team in full is Alex Palmer, Regan Poole, TJ Omer, Lewis Montsma, Teo Eden. James Jones is the man that comes into the side. He's alongside Conor McGrandles and Brennan Johnson. It is then Morgan Rogers, Anthony Scully and Callum Morton. The substitutes bench is Long, Sanders, Grant, Howarth, Anderson, Rowan and Draper as well. Mark, great news, isn't it? George Grant back in the squad. What do you make of it?
It's fantastic news. I've been a massive fan of his. When I've watched games, I just think he's just exudes confidence. I think he's playing in the right position. When he first came to the club, I don't think he was playing in the right position, but he just seems to affect the game whenever he plays. And as a central midfield player, that's what you want to do. You want to have an effect on the game, and he's certainly got that. He adds goals to us as well, you know. But he's passing, his range of passing, you know, he just seems to have this air about him that he knows he's a good player, and he just oozes confidence about that, and that must help the team, you know, the players around him as well. So fantastic news for him to be on the bench, and I hope, you know, the games go the right way in which he can get some minutes leading up to maybe the last 2 or 3 games. He could possibly push him for a starting position. So, yeah, fantastic news.
Yeah, Ben Waters tweeted saying George should get half an hour or so. Massive morale boost. That's what it is, isn't it, Gary? For the rest of that squad, a huge boost.
It is a huge boost in what has been a really challenging couple of months, even since the upturn in form with injuries. The likes of obviously Joe Walsh, Cohen Bramwell missing out. So it's nice to see bodies coming back. We do have to treat him with care. Remember, whatever tonight's result, win, lose or draw, and we're still firmly entrenched in a playoff hunt. We've got some huge games coming up, Hull, Peterborough, potentially 2 playoff semi-finals. So rather than rush George Grant back so that he's fully fit and firing for Saturday, I'd prefer to see him get half an hour in both games and then be properly fit by the time we came into that crucial end of season run. Great to see him back. I'll be delighted to see 1 or 2 more come back as well. But it will give the players a lift to see the vice captain on the bench.
Certainly. So we've absolutely raced through Matchday Live so far, and rightly so, because there's some big talking points to discuss. We haven't yet seen the highlights from Saturday's win against Bristol Rovers. This is the best of the action. Don't think we've got the highlights of the Bristol Rovers. Let's see if we may well have just lost some Wi-Fi there. So do bear with us a second, and I'll do my best to play it in my... We got there in the end, didn't we? And you'd have put your house on Morgan Rogers scoring at the end there, but thankfully it didn't matter. Gary, big win, physical encounter as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was hard fought. I thought both teams put themselves about. I read plenty about Bristol Rovers being a tough tackling team. I think that we had to match them, and I don't think that we're completely blameless for some of the challenges. But it was a good win. It was nice to see some more character. You know, we really showed that against Blackpool. We showed a very different type of application and character against MK Dons to come and put 4 past them. And then at the weekend, again, it was different, getting the early lead, going down there, with them going down to 10 men, the pressure's on. Certainly, you know, it's easy to forget that we had a young defence in with Ioma and Monsma, who I thought did very well against physical centre forwards in the second half in Hanlon and Ayunga. So a really important 3 points, and it does just ease the burden a little bit going into the next couple of games, I think.
Well, it certainly does ease the burden, doesn't it? I mean, this is how the League One table is shaping up, Mark. If we look at that 3 points, we know how tight it is. We could probably take that league table down to 12th or 13th place, couldn't we? That's how it stands at the moment.
Yeah, it is. It's really tight, isn't it? Like we said on Saturday, there's going to be loads of twists and turns still yet. Massive game tonight as well. What you don't want to do is do as well as you did on Saturday and then blow up tonight. So, I said I'd have been happy with a point on Saturday. I still feel the same about tonight. I'd be happy with a point tonight coming away from what's going to be, I think, going to be a little bit harder test than Saturday was. Burton, I think, have got a lot more about them than Bristol Rovers have. I think Bristol Rovers tried to impose themselves physically first 20 minutes and they had 1 or 2 half chances, didn't they? You look at their highlights, you think, but Lincoln rode their luck and then scored a great goal. And I think that just settled everybody down a little bit. So, again, first 20 minutes tonight is going to be vitally important. And I'm sure Gary will touch on the Burton side and what's going to happen with them. But certainly, the massive change from Burton. When I saw them against Lincoln on Boxing Day, it's a huge difference. So another tough game tonight. But like I say, you win back-to-back games, it almost puts you in that position where you can relax. But the problem is you can't relax that much because if you lose 2 on the bounce, then all of a sudden teams catch you up. So all to play for.
You mentioned that big goal. Let's have a look at Anthony Scully's fine finish against Bristol Rovers on the weekend. We've discussed him a lot, Mark, on Matchday Live throughout the course of this season. He is having a fine campaign, 15 goals. What do you make of him?
Yeah, he's just got better and better, I think. When I first saw him, he's a clever little player, and I mean that in the greatest respect to him because he makes really good runs. He's not got explosive pace, but he's quick enough, and his movement's got better. His little movement there, just 2 or 3 yards, just to get that little space and the weight of pass. I think it's Brennan Johnson that just rolls him in. The weight of pass just makes his mind up to hit it first time. So it's a fantastic team goal, but Anthony Scully, I think, has got better and better and better. I think he's quite clever. He's quite cute in his movements. And to be fair, he absolutely works his socks off, doesn't he? You can't knock his work rate in any game that I've seen him play. He just works and works and works. So he gets his rewards because he works so hard. That's my feeling. And, he's not blessed with great pace. He's not probably the greatest goal scorer in the world. But I think he's joint top scorer now, is it, with Jules Grant? I think with 15 off the top of my head. So, I think he's come on so much this season and he's become a real key element to Lincoln City scoring goals and moving forward.
Right then, let's get the pre-match thoughts from Lewis Monsma. He was asked what the mood in camp is like after a couple of wins in a row. This is what he had to say.
Yeah, very pleasing, of course. Happy to play a full game last Saturday as well. I think we did very well to keep a clean sheet last game. And especially the game before. Well, I think as a defender, if you win 1-0, it feels a bit better than 4-0.
Can you sort of put your finger on what's changed over the last couple of games? Because you went through a spell where, just before the COVID break, where you kind of conceding a lot of goals. Is there anything that you've noticed that's changed over the last couple of games that's led to that improvement?
I think almost every team in every competition has a moment of sort of dip in the season. I think we've had that maybe a bit longer than expected, but you have to be ready for that and come out of it as soon as you can. So I think we did, and I think we're on a good run now. So I hope to continue that run.
What was it like playing with TJ as your centre back partner?
Yeah, very very good. I think the first game of the season in the Carabao Cup against Crewe, we played together. Always good to play against TJ. We're both young. We both want to play games. It was a good experience.
Is he much different to play with than Adam or Joe?
What I said, I think the experience is a bit different, but I think he's a hard-working player, very good defender. Good footballer as well, so good to play with.
Yeah, the pre-match thoughts from Lewis Monsma, who was excellent, wasn't he, on Saturday afternoon down in Bristol. Gary, when you look at the average age of the defence, I think it was just over 22 years old. on Saturday. It really hammers home the point, doesn't it, of just how well these boys are doing. But Lewis in particular played really well alongside TJ.
Yeah, he did. I thought Lewis had probably his strongest game 2021. I thought he looked composed. As I said, there was certainly a physical threat from the Bristol Rovers forwards. Hanlon is a handful. He's quick as well. Ayunga I was really impressed with. And I think if I'd known before the game how well they were going to play, I might have had slightly better nerves going into it. I might not have predicted 1-1. But I really like Lewis. He brings the ball out well. He's very, very composed. I do like a more experienced player alongside him, but then credit to TJ. I think considering he's played right back all season, he dropped in very well as well. They're both fearless. They've both got big careers coming up, big careers ahead of them, and they're both in their first full professional season in the English game. I mean, Lewis has had to adapt to a new culture, a new style of football, a new level of football. He came out of the blocks, so quickly. Struggled a little bit at the beginning of the year, but it's nice to see him heading back to top form because he will be a really big player for us.
Well, that is the point, isn't it, Mark? That he was almost thrown straight into it, and it was a quite incredible start to his season as well. He's had to embed, hasn't he? He's had to take time, and you would have expected a minor dip in form at some stage. At 22 years old, playing centre-back in League One, having never been in this country before, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that you could say that probably for a lot of the players. I think that, again, I go back to that bit of work I did where I looked at previous seasons and how many games have these young lads played, and they haven't played many. So a lot of them are playing beyond the games that they played before in season. Sometimes some of them haven't even played games, competitive games at this level. So then for them to go and start playing 30, 40 games a season in this competitive league at the age they're at, I think is really commendable that they're in the playoffs. Lewis had a little bit of a dip, and I think that came about because of a lot of things. I think maybe a little bit of fatigue, mental fatigue as well. I think he had the COVID as well, which probably rocked him a little bit. So I think he's just working his way back now to full fitness. I think his confidence is coming back. I think the player that you see now is just beginning to develop into the player that we saw in probably the first 3 months of the season when he was outstanding. So it would be nice for him to score a few more goals. He's been sat on 8 goals for a long time. So he needs to start getting his head on stuff and getting his feet on stuff at set pieces again. But I'm sure that will come. And, he's been a real good buy, a real intelligent buy from Michael and the club. And, I think he'll just get better and better. I really do. I think he's taken a couple of whacks. Certainly the Northampton one that I witnessed, that was a very deliberate elbow, and he's had to take some whacks along the way, but that's only going to do him good. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. If you're a centre half at this level, you are going to take some physicality against you. But he's come through that, and like I say, I just think his confidence is coming back, and you can see that in his performances. He just looks like the player he was in the first three months of the season.
Quite the prospect, isn't he? Right then, tonight's opponents looked pretty much doomed, didn't they, when the two sides met at the LNER Stadium back in December. They've been on quite the run since, but let's have a look at the best of the action from that game. It was a big win, wasn't it? Here's the highlights.
Don't try to run which shot to your feet. Don't follow orders from the ones you're trying to be. But chewing on broken glass and spit it out to sea. How far you think you are from secrets that you see. And I told you said I had to go. And I'm taking all I have because you know you're better on your own. And it's time you walk alone, 'cause you're so much better on your own. What time is yet to come? Stop ruling out for more. There's a fine line you walk upon where you're not really sure. Sun shining up all night, you've nothing left to give. time to live. But I told you said I had to go. Then I'm taking all I have because you know you're better on your own. And it's time you walked alone, 'cause you're so much better on your own.
Yeah, very happy Boxing Day indeed, wasn't it? Right, delighted to say that Burton Albion fan from the Brewers TV, Jack Stout, joins us now. Jack, much appreciated for your time. Thanks for joining us on tonight's Matchday Live. I believe at the time you were 6 points adrift. You'd played 3 more games than Bristol Rovers, and here you are, just about safe. And they may well be one step closer to relegation this evening as well. What a campaign it's been, or what a second part to the campaign it's been for your side under Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank.
Yeah, it's been incredible, really. I don't think anyone actually saw it coming. Even myself, I like to consider myself quite the optimist, really, but I didn't see it coming. It's been an immense turnaround since Jimmy's come in. We've won 12, only lost 4. It's an incredible turnaround. Like you said, almost safe there, and we look a completely different team to the team watching those highlights back just then. We look like a completely different side now. Hopefully, we'll do it justice in today's game.
But why do you look like a different side? What has Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank done? Has he done exactly what he did when he first came into you a few years ago? Is it as simple as that? Has he changed things tactics-wise, formation-wise, player-wise? Give us a bit of an insight if you could.
I think it's definitely the philosophy that he brought with us, that he brought to us the first time around is pretty similar. There's so much hard work going on the pitch, a lot of players being demanded a lot of, especially in the midfield. Midfielders have had to work ever so hard since Jimmy's come in. But there's also been a few tweaks. Obviously, he's got Dino Mamria as his assistant manager. He's been, I think, a big help with some of the signings that we've made. We brought in Tom Hamer and Johnny Smith, both who played under Dino at Oldham, and they've been really good for us. Tom Hamer's got a huge long throw, which I'm sure you'll have to keep an eye out for. And we made a lot of signings generally. And those signings not only have impacted the starting 11 and how we've performed, but they've also done a great job of pushing those players who were the core of the team to put in even better performances. So all round, a mix of what he's done before and a little bit of a few new signs he's added. It's been really good.
Just going to bring our pundit Gary Hutchinson back into the conversation as well, Jack. And before Gary puts a question to you, I'm going to throw a question to Gary. With regards to managers, is it just sometimes, Gary, that a manager suits a particular club? I look at Eddie Howe and Bournemouth. I know that obviously Keith Hill is doing a pretty good job at Tranmere to an extent, but, you know, he was a Rochdale man, wasn't he? You look at John Coleman and Accrington as well. Is that just sometimes the case that a manager suits a particular team, and why?
Potentially. I think the managers that you've mentioned have always gone back for second spells. And I think when they go back for a second spell, they understand the culture of the club. They understand the fans. Obviously, they've got a little bit of credit in the bank as well. And I think all of that helps them if there is a sticky period. I also think certain managers suit certain groups of players. And clearly, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank has come in and completely overhauled the group of players to get success. And I mean, that's where I really want to ask Jack about. I mean, you mentioned 2 signings there in Hamer and Smith, who have obviously impressed you. Now, on paper, I'm incredibly impressed with catchers like Michael Mancien, like Danny Rowe, but in particular, Sean Clare is one that's caught the eye, and Ryan Broom as well. I mean, of those 4, sort of which is the key man for you out of those new signings?
Michael Mancien's been absolutely immense since he's come in, kind of shifting into a defensive midfield position. He's been the anchor, if you will, and he's been faultless. He kind of goes about his business quietly in the middle of the pitch, but he does a great job, and so does Sean Clare in a slightly similar role. They're just kind of, you know that they're there, and they're really important to how we play. Sean Clare presses quite high up as well, puts a tackle in. They're really crucial to us winning the back in the middle of the pitch. Ryan Broom struggled a little bit, I think, since he's coming back from, not getting too much game time in the first half of the season. Scored a really important goal for us against Plymouth on Saturday, though, coming in off the bench with some great legs. So that's a really he's been a good player for us, and Danny Rowe as well. scored some really important goals for us, scored a great one away at Charlton. And he's very powerful in that kind of attacking midfield role. And he's also been a great acquisition. So yeah, we've got great squad depth now, which is something that we've never really had at this club for quite some time. And that's been really important for us as well.
Jack, just finally, it's been great having you on tonight's Matchday Live. Could you give us a score prediction, if you don't mind? I'm guessing that it won't be exactly the same as it was back in Boxing Day.
Well, I certainly hope not. I think we look good against the teams that want to come and play good football against us. They want to come and attack us. So I'm hoping that we'll manage to find a way past Lincoln. I'll go with a 2-1 Burton win this evening. We
shall see, won't we? Much appreciated. Jack Stapp from the Brewers TV. Lovely to get the thoughts of Jack there. Right then, so we've got the thoughts of the Burton Albion fan. Let's now get the thoughts of the Lincoln City manager talking about tonight's opponents. This is what he had to say.
Maybe. We're 50-50 with a couple of players. It might be... I know we've had a few challenging games and a few challenging moments this season, but I think tomorrow night might top it off. I might top all of them. I think Colin Bramall and Regan Poole are going to be 50-50 for tomorrow.
I was going to ask about Regan Poole because that looks like one pretty nasty knock that he took with the post. Was that the issue?
Yeah. So obviously we'll have a better idea today and a better gauge of it. But obviously, as you can probably imagine, he was very sore yesterday. We'll know the full extent. Regan's a tough lad, to be fair. I think you've probably seen so far since he's come in and what he brings towards and adds towards. And, he's playing threshold, he's pretty good. But obviously, we'll better have a better indication later on today and then even more so tomorrow. Colin Bramall rocked his ankle on Tuesday against MK Dons, one of the reasons that we brought him off in that game as well. And he played through it on Saturday, got through most of the game okay, but then fell awkwardly towards the end. So he's going to be 50-50. And obviously already having the likes of Adam Jackson and Joe Walsh out, obviously at least a little bit sparse. So let's see what the next 24 hours brings.
Looking back to Boxing Day, it was a pretty comprehensive win over Burton. They've had quite the turnaround though, haven't they?
Yeah, listen, Jimmy's done brilliantly since he's gone into the football club again. Obviously, it's a club that he knows well from his previous time there. What he has done, first and foremost, made them very, very hard to beat. In his first few games, correct me if I'm wrong, he's won a few games 1-0 and did that in the early part when he first sort of took over and made him a lot more resolute. And I think once you do that, you can build from the back and build from the base and then be a little bit more expansive. He's brought a lot of sort of new players into the team and to the squad, and it's a very, very different looking side to the one that we beat, back on Boxing Day. So very difficult games. You can see on Saturday, obviously they drew against Plymouth, but felt like they should have won the game, and I get and understand that. And they beat some good sides over the last couple of months.
Yeah, the pre-match thoughts of the manager, Michael Appleton there. Let me just run you through the Lincoln City starting 11 then. If you're only just joining us, the manager makes just the one change to the starting 11 that beat Bristol Rovers on Saturday. James Jones comes into the side. And the big news as well is that George Grant is back on the bench, of course, having not played since that defeat away at Plymouth Argyle. The team in full is Alex Palmer, Regan Poole, TJ Omer, Lewis Monsma, Teo Eden. The midfield three of James Jones, Conor McGrandles and Brennan Johnson, albeit a fluid midfield three, of course, because Brennan Johnson will probably likely shape up alongside Morgan Rogers as well. It is then Anthony Scully and Callum Morton. The substitutes bench is Long, Sanders, Grant, Howarth, Anderson, Rowan and Draper. Right, let me bring Gary Hutchinson and Mark Home back into the conversation as well. We've got about 5 minutes left of what has been a very, very busy show indeed, and talk about some other big League One fixtures as well. Current live score for you, if you're not aware, that Swindon, certainly since I was last told a couple of minutes ago, beating Portsmouth 1-0. Brett Pittman scoring against his old side there. Of course, Danny Cowley's Portsmouth losing to Swindon at the moment. In terms of some of the other big fixtures this evening, Gary, Rochdale-Blackpool's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's a huge one. Blackpool are going great guns, but Rochdale just suddenly look like they might be making a fight of it. I like the way Rochdale play their football. We talk about possession without a purpose. I thought when we played against them, okay, we were very poor, but I thought they'd have enough to get out of the bottom four. I'm not convinced they will, but they are great escape artists. I remember the boy, I can't remember his name now, scoring on the last day of the season a couple of seasons ago and keeping them in League One. So I think that's going to be a really tough game for Blackpool. And I'll tell you something, if Blackpool lose a game now and start going on a little bit of a negative run, it bodes really well for us in the playoffs. So keep an eye on that game.
Yeah, interesting indeed. Mark, I'll throw some fixtures your way and you tell me which ones you want to talk about. The other ones that I've picked out, certainly from a Lincoln playoff chasing perspective, Wimbledon, Oxford, Accrington versus Doncaster, and Northampton versus Ipswich as well. Which ones stick out to you?
The Northampton Ipswich game, both for opposite reasons, really. So Northampton's, that's a tough one to call. I mean, Northampton scrapping for their lives, will want to beat Ipswich, and Ipswich still chasing on the, trying to get hold of a playoff spot. And if one of us in there, doesn't perform over the next 2 or 3 games, and they win back-to-back games, like I said previously earlier in the show, Ipswich could sneak in. So it's all to play for. I mean, Hull could get promoted tonight. There's the Sunderland. It's just the games are just going to get more and more important, more and more tense, and you might get 1 or 2 really strange results because of the games and what the games mean for people. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting evening.
Hull on the verge of promotion, then, Gary, as Mark alluded to there. How could that affect Saturday's game?
Well, I think if they win promotion, they'll still want to go on and win the title. So you would like to think it doesn't. You would like to think professional footballers are not going to take their foot off the gas. They're going to want to come here and put in a good show. Remember, they haven't beaten us in 2 meetings this season. So looking ahead to Saturday, that is going to be huge. It's a massive, massive game. Personally, I fancy us more to get something from Saturday's game than I do tonight's game, because I think it suits us more. I think it suits us when we're playing the better teams, the ones that want to come and attack us. And as Jack alluded to, Burton play better when we have to attack them. So yeah, I see tonight's game as just as tough. I think if Hull do secure promotion, and I do fancy them to do it, I don't think it majorly affects the game at all. You'd certainly hope not.
Jack Stout from the Brewers TV said that he fancies his side to get a 2-1 victory tonight, Gary. How do you see it going score-wise?
Well, I was on a good run until the weekend. I'm afraid I'm going to be the pessimist again, so I'll take some pelts on social media. I think tonight is going to be a very, very tough night for Lincoln City. I'm actually going to agree with Jack. I think Burton might squeeze a 2-1 win.
Pessimistic Gary, then. Is this where optimistic Mark comes in?
Yeah, I think I'm hoping they don't get beat tonight. I hope defensively they're as good as they were on Saturday, and I'm hoping for a 1-1 draw. That's what I'm hoping for tonight. Just don't get beat. I think that's the key thing tonight, and then go into this massive game on Saturday against Hull.
Well, I'll say win then, just to even things out. Gary, Mark, much appreciated for your time this evening. Really enjoyed tonight's show. It's absolutely flown by.
Thanks, Sam.
Both there of Mark Hone and Gary Hutchinson, as well. Myself and Gary will be back on Saturday for that aforementioned massive game against Hull City. We'll be back at the usual time of 1:30. You can get your match pass now by going to www.weareimps.com/ifollow. Do enjoy tonight's game, and fingers crossed the Imps can get one step closer, I should say, to the playoffs. Bye for now.